I hid from death. It found me anyway. True scary story. The rearview mirror showed me more than just the receding highway. It showed the terror I couldn't shake, the phantom images flickering at the edge of my vision. Mom and Dad, their crumpled car a twisted metal origami against a rainy overpass. Their screams cut short. It wasn't just grief anymore. Grief was a dull ache, a constant companion. This was different. This was a premonition, a horrifying glimpse into our future, Daniel's and mine. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, knuckles white. Daniel, oblivious, hummed along to some cartoon theme song on his tablet. He was 10, all boundless energy and innocent trust. How could I explain to him that something was coming for us? Something relentless, something inevitable. It started subtly, a pressure in my chest, a feeling of being watched. Then the nightmares began, vivid, hyper-realistic dreams of our deaths. Sometimes it was a fire consuming us in our beds. Other times, a shadowy figure lurking in the doorway, a chilling whisper silencing our screams. Last night's dream was the worst. We were trapped, buried alive. I could feel the suffocating weight of the earth, the panic clawing at my throat. Daniel's small hand reaching for mine, his eyes wide with terror. And then darkness. Dr. Armitage, my therapist, called it PTSD, anxiety, survivor's guilt. She prescribed medication, suggested coping mechanisms, but she didn't understand. This wasn't just in my head, this was real, I knew it. Sarah, you need to ground yourself in reality, she'd said, her voice calm and measured. These are just anxiety-induced hallucinations. But what if they are not? I'd pleaded. What if they are warnings? She'd given me that pitying look, the one that made me feel like I was losing my mind. So I stopped talking about it. I stopped going to therapy. I started preparing. I devoured books on folklore, the occult, anything that mentioned cheating death, defying fate. I learned about wards, rituals, places rumored to be untouched by the Grim Reaper. Most of it was nonsense, of course, but I was desperate. I pulled the car over to the side of the road, my hands trembling. Daniel, honey, are you hungry? He looked up from his game, his face lighting up. Pizza. Maybe later, I said, forcing a smile. Let's just stretch our legs for a bit. We got out of the car and I scanned our surroundings. A desolate stretch of highway bordered by dense woods. The air was thick with humidity, the sky a dull, oppressive gray. This morning had been the final straw. Another premonition, this one so clear, so visceral, it left me gasping for breath. We were in our apartment, a place that was supposed to be safe. But in my dream, it became a tomb. A gas leak, a sudden explosion, and then nothing. I couldn't stay there. I couldn't risk it. Come on, let's go, I said, grabbing Daniel's hand. We need to find somewhere safe. Safe from what? He asked, his brow furrowed. Just safe, I replied, avoiding his gaze. Somewhere far away from here. I started driving again, aimlessly wandering until a faded sign caught my eye. Blackwood next exit. The name sent a shiver down my spine. I'd read about Blackwood, a forgotten town in rural Maine, during one of my frantic research sessions. A place with a dark history, whispered tales of misfortune and despair. And most importantly, a place largely forgotten by the outside world. Blackwood, I muttered to myself. Maybe the town was exactly as I'd imagined, dilapidated, isolated, and eerily quiet. Most of the buildings were boarded up, the streets deserted. A palpable sense of decay hung in the air. I stopped at the only open establishment, a small, dusty library. An older woman with a severe bun and thick glasses looked up from her book as we entered. Can I help you? She asked, her voice raspy. I'm looking for some information on the area, I said, specifically the Blackwood Estate. The woman's eyes narrowed. Why are you interested in that place? We're thinking of buying it, I lied. We're looking for a quiet place to settle down, she snorted. Quiet is one word for it, cursed is another. The Blackwood family all died mysteriously generations ago. Bad luck, they say, but I think there's something more to it. She pulled a faded book from a shelf and handed it to me. This might be of interest, but be warned, some things are best left buried. The book detailed the history of the Blackwood family, their rise to prominence and their tragic downfall. Each generation seemed to be plagued by misfortune, culminating in a series of unexplained deaths. Suicides, accidents, illnesses, all seemingly random, yet connected by a thread of despair. And then there was the estate itself, a sprawling mansion built on land rumored to be sacred to the local Native American tribes. The book mentioned whispers of a malevolent entity, a dark force that fed on negative energy. I should have turned around then. I should have heeded the warnings and driven away as fast as I could. But I was desperate. I needed a place to hide, a place where death couldn't find us. And the Blackwood Estate, with its cursed reputation and secluded location, seemed like the perfect refuge. The estate was even more dilapidated than I'd expected. The mansion loomed against the horizon, a Gothic monstrosity with crumbling walls, broken windows, and a roof that sagged like a weary old man. The grounds were overgrown with weeds, the air thick with the smell of decay. Daniel was scared. "Mom, I don't like this place," he said, clinging to my hand. "It's okay, honey," I said, trying to sound reassuring. "It's just old. We'll fix it up, make it our own." But even as I said the words, I knew I was lying. This place was beyond repair. This place was haunted. We moved in anyway. I spent the first few days cleaning, boarding up windows and setting up makeshift alarms. I felt like I was preparing for war, and in a way I was. I met Elias, the groundskeeper, on the third day. He was an old man, even older than he looked. His face was etched with wrinkles, his eyes filled with a deep sadness. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "This place is cursed. It'll bring you nothing but sorrow." "I don't have anywhere else to go," I said, my voice trembling. "Then you're a fool," he said. "Leave while you still can." I ignored his warning. I had to. The strange occurrences started almost immediately. Unexplained noises, objects moving on their own, a palpable sense of dread that permeated every room. Daniel started sleepwalking, muttering in a strange voice, a voice that wasn't his. One night I woke up to find him standing at the foot of my bed, his eyes wide and vacant. "It wants you," he whispered, his voice raspy and distorted. "It wants your fear." I grabbed him and pulled him close, my heart pounding in my chest. "Who wants me, Daniel? Who are you talking about?" He didn't answer. He just stared at me, his eyes filled with an unsettling emptiness. The premonitions became more frequent, more intense. I started experiencing waking visions, reliving the Blackwood family's tragic demise. I saw the entity manipulating events, causing their deaths, feeding on their despair. It was then that I realized what was happening. Death wasn't just coming for us, it was here. It had been here all along, lurking in the shadows, waiting for its opportunity. I started losing my grip on reality. I saw shadows in every corner, heard whispers in the wind. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think straight. I was consumed by fear. One night, a violent storm raged outside. The house groaned and creaked, the wind howling like a banshee. Daniel started screaming, his eyes rolling back in his head. "It's here," he shrieked, his voice a guttural growl. It's inside me. The house seemed to come alive. Doors slammed shut, windows shattered, the temperature plummeted. I felt an icy presence in the room, a dark, malevolent force that filled me with pure terror. Daniel lunged at me, his face contorted with rage. His eyes were black, devoid of any humanity. "You can't hide from me," he hissed, his voice a chilling echo of something ancient and evil. "I will find you, I will break you, I will consume you." I grabbed a rusty axe from the corner of the room, my hand shaking. I didn't want to hurt Daniel, but I had no choice. He wasn't Daniel anymore. He was something else, something monstrous. "Get away from me," I screamed, swinging the axe wildly. He dodged the blow, his movements impossibly fast. He grabbed my arm, his grip like iron. "You can't stop me," he said, his eyes burning with an unholy light. "This house belongs to me. And now you belong to me too." I kicked him in the stomach, sending him stumbling backward. I ran to the door, dragging him with me. "We have to get out of here," I shouted. "We have to escape," but the house wouldn't let us. The doors slammed shut, the windows boarded themselves up. We were trapped. A desperate struggle ensued. I battled both the entity and the possessed Daniel, my body aching, my mind reeling. I managed to subdue Daniel temporarily, tying him to a chair with rope. But the entity was relentless. It tormented me with visions, taunted me with whispers, pushed me to the brink of madness. Just when I thought I couldn't take anymore, Elias appeared seemingly out of nowhere. He was carrying a tattered book, his face grim. "There's only one way to stop it," he said, his voice hoarse. "A ritual, an ancient rite to weaken its power." He handed me the book, pointing to a specific passage. The instructions were cryptic, filled with archaic symbols and strange ingredients. "You have to perform the ritual in the heart of the estate," he said. "But be warned, it will test you. It will try to break you. You must be strong." I didn't know if I could do it. I was exhausted, terrified, and on the verge of collapse. but I had to try for Daniel for myself. I followed Elias's instructions, gathering the necessary ingredients and venturing into the depths of the mansion. The entity fought me every step of the way, conjuring terrifying illusions, whispering insidious doubts in my ear. I found myself in the grand ballroom, the heart of the estate. The air was thick with a suffocating darkness, the temperature below freezing. I set up the ritual, drawing the symbols on the floor with chalk, arranging the candles and herbs. As I began to chant the ancient words, the entity unleashed its full power. The room shook, the walls seemed to close in, and the darkness intensified. I saw the faces of the Blackwood family, their eyes filled with despair, their mouths open in silent screams. I almost lost my nerve. I almost gave in to the fear. But then I thought of Daniel, his innocent face, his unwavering trust in me. I couldn't let him down. I closed my eyes and focused on the words, pouring all my energy into the ritual. The chanting grew louder, the symbols on the floor began to glow, and a wave of pure energy emanated from me. The entity recoiled, its power weakened. The room began to lighten, the shaking subsided, and the faces of the Blackwood family faded away. But it wasn't over yet. Sheriff Brody arrived at the estate, responding to reports of strange activity. He found me disoriented and covered in blood, muttering about curses and entities. He initially dismissed my claims as madness, ready to take me into custody. Then a bookshelf detached itself from the wall and crashed to the floor right in front of him. He blanched. His skepticism wavered. I finished the ritual, feeling a surge of power coursing through my veins. The entity was weakened, but not defeated. It was still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for its opportunity. We escaped the collapsing Blackwood Estate, leaving behind the entity and its dark legacy. Sheriff Brody escorted us to a local motel, promising to keep us safe. In the motel room, I watched Daniel sleep, his face peaceful, his breathing steady. He was safe for now. But as I looked around the room, I noticed a faint, familiar shadow flicker in the corner. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but I knew what it was. The entity, it had followed us. I walked to the window and stared out at the dark, rain-swept night. A chilling smile spread across my face. "It's still here," I whispered. "I don't know what will happen next. I don't know if we'll ever truly be safe. But I know one thing, I am not the same person I was before. The entity has changed me, tainted me. I am now a part of it, bound to it by a dark and unbreakable connection. Maybe I didn't win. Maybe I just become what I fought the most." The hunt continues.